Welcome to the On List. I still have a moppy head of hair because I need to get a haircut soon, and I wasn't able to get to the barber last weekend, because we had a big heat wave and things were just not super conducive for long travel. So I pushed my haircut another week out, so you're still getting this moppy head full of hair. However, this particular video is about something unrelated to my hair. Okay, if you've read the title at the bottom of the video, if you've seen the little title card in your recommendations in your algorithm, you already know the title of this video, and that is Fragrant Surprises. What do I mean by fragrant surprises? Well, all of us are guilty of blind buys or buying things based on reviews and recommendations without testing. I don't make so many blind buys anymore like I used to, because I have a very large collection. So I feel if I'm going to add to this collection, as big as it already is, I need to be a little more discerning, vet my choices, try to sample, either get samples or minis from friends. I know some people who run some stores and they send me stuff sometimes, or I have friends who give me little decants or samples they've purchased. I try not to buy decants. I've already done a video about why I don't really buy decants. So I try to go off the faith and generosity of my friends, and I pay it forward. I take all the samples I get and send them back out to other people too. So it all just kind of goes around like this. But blind buys still happen, because sometimes you just cannot try a fragrance. You just can't. You're going to have to buy it and hope that all the reading you've done and all the videos you've watched and everything you've gathered about the fragrance holds true, at least partially, at least somewhat, you know? And that's it. You just kind of take the dice and you and pop into a new pair of shoes. Ah, snake eyes. Damn it. So part of the fun sometimes, I guess, is getting your hands on something, knowing the fragrance only off of what your mind's eye has cobbled together based on what you've read. And then you get surprises that way, because you learn very quickly in this hobby that a lot of people, and I'm not taking shots at anyone, so please don't think I'm talking about you. If you think this is about you, this is not about you. Like the Carly Simon song, "You're So Vain, You Probably Think This Song Is About You." Okay, that's gonna apply here. This is a blanket statement, and some of y'all get really personal about blanket statements, but a lot of people are just not very literate with describing perfumes. And I understand. It's difficult to take smell and turn it into verbiage. Sometimes you just don't have the vocabulary to say what your brain is interpreting when you smell a fragrance. You don't know what it smells like exactly, so you do your best. So again, I'm not really blaming anyone here, but there are a lot of people out there who write reviews who are fairly illiterate at describing smells. And unfortunately, a lot of times, those people who are highly illiterate with describing smell are the only ones writing reviews on certain fragrances. Certain fragrances. They're the only ones writing reviews. So you don't have a choice. You have to take what you read, knowing it's probably wrong or it's highly inaccurate at best. And again, it's the dice. You're going, whew. And what you have cobbled together in your mind's eye ends up being completely wrong, because you buy the fragrance shows up, you crack open the box, or if it's the unboxed item, you pop the cap off, you smell it, and you're like, it's nothing like you could have ever expected in a million years. So let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about some of my biggest fragrant surprises. My blind buys that I've made in the past, that when those fragrances showed up at my doorstep and I smelled them, they were nothing like I could have imagined. They were nothing like people wrote, nothing like people said, entirely different. And usually for the good, sometimes for the bad, but mostly for the good. Pleasant surprises, seldom unpleasant surprises. Personally, one of my biggest fragrant surprises in my collection is going to be this little guy right here. Very silly bottle, very goofy paint job. This is actually a very inexpensive fragrance too. Very, very inexpensive. Doesn't cost very much money. It has this really interesting paint scheme. First of all, the fragrance is called Samba. Samba for Men by the Perfumer's Workshop. And I've done videos about the Perfumer's Workshop. You can watch videos about them elsewhere too if you like. But they were a brand that started life making custom fragrances made to order at a counter. Then they evolved into making just finished fragrances that were sold like everyone else does. But they began life doing bespokes. It's kind of a cool service. So this came out in 1990. It is the follow-up to the women's Samba, which came out in 87. So 3 years later, men's version came around. First of all, this looks like a Kong toy. You own a dog, or have ever owned a dog, and you've bought them those toys that are shaped like this, and the bottom is usually hollow, and you can put peanut butter or something else in it, or a dog treat, and then they try to get the treat out. They chew on it. It's rubber. It's for people who have dogs that destroy other treats, destroy other toys. You get them a Kong toy, and it's kind of like the thing that they can chew on and can't break. So this kind of reminds me of one of those. That isn't what made it so surprising, though. The surprising aspect is the smell. Everyone described this thing as being some kind of fresh fougere, some kind of clean, fresh, soapy fougere. And it is those things. It's a fougere, and it is soapy, but it's very floral. It's very, very floral, very highly floral. In fact, this is so floral, that it's very reminiscent of shampoo, of a very specific kind of shampoo, of that mid to late 80s, early 90s, balsam and protein, sort of floral shampoo that all the major brands had back then. They no longer have. Stuff like Revlon Flex, like Fabergé Organics, stuff like White Rain, okay? Suave had a balsam and protein as well. All those things are gone now. You can't buy any of them anymore. So most young people, most Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they don't know this smell. If they were to smell this, it'd be a brand new thing for them. But us old heads, us geriatric millennials and Gen X people, you know, born in the 70s up to like 1980, 81, if you were a child in the 80s, whether a little child or an older child, if you were a child in the 80s, you smelled shampoo just like this particular fragrance. And when I encountered this, I was like, wow, that is a memory right there. And the fact that they put it in a man's perfume bottle, sold to men, fantastic. But this packaging doesn't really communicate that it's going to smell like vintage shampoo. You see this and you don't think, oh, vintage shampoo. Not at all. And I guess in 1990 it wasn't a vintage smell. You could still buy those shampoos in 1990 when this came out. So maybe that's what it was for. It was for the guy who liked the smell of those shampoos and wanted to carry that smell into his work day. He could buy this cologne and smell like his favorite shampoo. I don't know. But it was a big surprise to me, and I liked it. Another big surprise is this fragrance, and I discussed this fragrance in another video. So, this Anucci for men. This is basically a women's market floral chypre, an aldehyde floral chypre, but marketed to men. So if you're someone who likes stuff like Giorgio, if you always wanted a men's version of Giorgio, and I don't mean Giorgio Beverly Hills for men, I don't mean the patchouli fragrance, I mean the original 1979, 1980, whenever that came out, the original Giorgio women's fragrance. If you wanted a version of that for men, then you basically want this Anucci. And people did describe this as floral, and they did describe this as being fresh, but no one got anywhere near close to what this actually is. No one got close. Not even close. So when I bought this, I did not know it was going to be this big floral, yellow floral, chypre with this massive, massive chamomile and orange blossom and freaking jasmine and ylang ylang. I had no idea what's going to turn into that. So it just knocked me right off my butt. And shaped like this golf ball like this, with this big heavy golf ball cap. I mean, come on, guys, come on. I told my friend JJ that this was a troll. Someone was trolling the market when they released this back in 1989, because 89 wasn't very far away from all those women's fragrances that were still on the market then. People were still wearing Beautiful. They were still wearing Spellbound. They were still wearing stuff like Amarige, okay? They were still wearing that stuff back then. So to put something like that in a bottle and sell it to men, it's hilarious. Hilarious. Big surprise. Big surprise. So, now, on that same token, another really big surprise. When I got it, I had no idea it was going to be the way it was. Was honestly this guy right here. Now I've also got vintage bottles of this. Over there, up there. I've got the old, the tall bottle with the little square in the middle. But this is easier to reach, so you're just going to see the new one this time. But people described this as being big carnation fragrance. This massive rose, lavender carnation. This big floral thing is what they described this as. And I'm like, okay, so it's going to be like a Monsieur Houbigant or Monsieur Musk. It's going to be like The Baron by Evian, one of those big carnation fragrances. Something like Arrogance. Arrogance is a big carnation fragrance. Or even like the first Van Cleef and Arpels for Men. Those are all big carnation fragrances. All of those, right? Big carnation fragrances. This is not that. Not that at all. Yes, there's a big carnation in here. There is. So they weren't incorrect. But they completely missed all of the oriental elements that are in this. The amber, the sandalwood, the musk, the spices, the balsamic notes, okay, the resin notes. This fragrance is like a precursor to something like Obsession for Men, okay, something like that. It's not quite as full oriental as like it's not like JHL or Cinnabar or one of those. It's not that oriental. It's not full, full tilt amber. It's not a full tilt amber fragrance, but it's still much more in that sort of ambery, musky, spicy realm, to where the clove and the carnation and the lavender and the rose and all the floral elements, all the guys keep talking about the floral elements, they really take a back seat to that. I feel like those Oriental elements they shine a bit brighter, and it's fantastic. It's deep, it's rich, it's heavy. But I was not expecting that. I was expecting a more floral fougere. I was expecting something more like a 80s style complex take on the original Caron Poronome, but made more floral, more complex arrangements. Because that was just primary lavender, right? And vanilla. But no, it's not that at all. It's definitely not that. And it was a big surprise for me. Pleasant one, but still a surprise. And then this one right here. Richard James, Savile Row, another one. The guys really doubled down on the tuberose in this. They went on and on and on. The reviews on Fragrantica, the reviews on Base Notes. Everyone said, oh, this is a big man's tuberose fragrance. And you know what? Yeah, there's tuberose in here. Okay? Again, they're not wrong. But, you know, it's like they were omitting information. It was lying by omission. It's like they were just trying to create a narrative, and I absolutely hate that. I absolutely hate that. That is the one thing, if you want to get on my shit list in terms of being a reviewer or a content creator or anything, it's when you don't fully describe something. You cherry pick just the parts of it that you want so you can spin your own narrative. And you see it with the gatekeepers over vintages and batches. You see it with the niche snobs and the artisanal guys, and all they talk about is the sandalwood or the oud or what year it came out, and it's this batch. But they don't really talk about the rest of the fragrance, do they? They just talk about the things that they want to hook you in. Like the guys who go on and on about the civet and Koros. And I'm like, Koros doesn't have any civet in it. Koros doesn't even technically have civitone in it. It has animalis, which is a compound. And that compound may contain civitone or may contain civet in trace amounts because it's a compound, right? It's like a pre-made base. It may have some of those materials in trace quantities, but it's a compound. You know, it's like when you talk about mousse de Saxe. You can say technically mousse de Saxe has oak moss in it, and technically mousse de Saxe has isobutylquinoline, and technically mousse de Saxe also has anisic alcohol. You can mention all those individual materials that comprise mousse de Saxe all you want, but mousse de Saxe is mousse de Saxe. That's the point. It's a finished product by itself. And animalis is a finished product by itself. So when you spin the narrative, you're lying by omission. And people say shit like, this is a tuberose fragrance. This is not a tuberose fragrance. This is a fucking amber fragrance. It's a fucking amber fragrance. This is an amber fragrance, okay? It's got a big, gummy, rich, musky, amber profile. It does have tuberose in it. Yes, there is tuberose in this fragrance. Yes, there is also lavender in this fragrance. There are a lot of things. There's mandarin orange in this fragrance. This is a complex, well-made fragrance. I believe Yves Cassar composed this in 2002, I think. Yves Cassar created this, and it's a good fragrance. But it is not a tuberose fragrance. And I was surprised when I smelled this and how rich it was, how redolent this fragrance is. The pinch bottle is also really cool. It's almost like, in my opinion, like whoever designed this was clearly inspired by Z14, the Elsa Peretti bottles that were made for Z14. Whoever designed the bottle for for the Richard James Savile Row. Clearly, they were channeling the energy of Elsa Peretti, and I approve. Highly approve of that. But fact remains, not Tuberose. Tuberose is a player. It's not Tuberose. Another big surprise. Something that I was not not suspecting at all. This fragrance right here. Just gotta find it real quick. Oh yeah, here we go. Beyond Paradise by Estee Lauder. Everyone who talks about this fragrance quotes Luca Turin and says how Luca Turin loves this stuff and how futuristic and photorealistic the florals are and how it has these notes of flowers that are exotic and only grow in certain places, and you'll never smell anything like that ever again in a fragrance, and it's just so futuristic and blah blah blah. But again, people spin narratives, and all that I just said applies to the women's fragrance, applies to the feminine market beyond Paradise. None of that at all applies to the men's version. None of it. Luca Turin, I mean, he might have smelled the men's version, but he didn't write about the men's version. At least I'm not aware that he did. If he did, it must be glossed over. But the thing people attribute to him in his glowing remarks, that's the woman's fragrance. It's not this one. It's not this one. Now, both of them were composed by the same perfumer, by Callis Becker, yes. But this one is, for all intents and purposes, an aquatic fragrance. This is an aquatic fragrance. But it is still far more unique, far more interesting, far more futuristic than most aquatics were ever going to be in 2004 when this came out. So yeah, some of that futurism, some of that avant-garde, forward-thinking, some of the conceptualism did make its way into this fragrance too, but not to the extent of the women's version. And this, honestly, this fragrance is mostly about grape leaf. So if you're familiar with Versace Man from 2003, you know what grape leaf is. It's got a little bit of a grape smell, yes, but it's also got a green sort of tomato leaf kind of cis-3 hexanol kind of smell to it. And she uses a lot of that in here. And she uses a couple other fruity materials and floral materials. It's still a very buzzy, ethereal, light, fresh sort of smell. It's a good smell. But honestly, what really surprised me about this fragrance is just how close this is. How close this is to Nautica Voyage, which would come out 2 years later, 2006. Nautica Voyage is a Maurice Roussel creation. He composed both Nautica Blue and Voyage the same year. I had both of them. I gave them both away. The reason why I gave Nautica Voyage away is because I discovered this fragrance. Nautica Voyage is effectively a sweetened up, dumbed down version of this. So if someone took Nautica Voyage and added more florals to it, added more green notes, took that really sour, sweet apple note and turned it down a lot, almost got rid of it completely. But just built a more complex floral green version of Nautica Voyage, you'd have this. And that's still really good. That's still fantastic. So good that, like I said, I got rid of my Nautica Voyage and I stuck with this. But again, I was surprised because this is not the big conceptual orgasmic nose experience that it was painted to be. Not at all. That, if you want that experience, you got to buy the women's fragrance. Don't buy this one. If you want a really interesting, different, complex, artistic, aquatic fragrance, that's what you want, like an aquatic fragrance with a brain, you want that, then this is good. Then this is right up your alley. The Beyond Paradise for men. Big surprise. Quite surprised by that. Another fragrance that really surprised me. Oh, this is the wrong bottle. Hold up. Hold up. Here we go. This is what I want. Sorry, all the Montales look the same after a while. This really surprised me. And I know he's a bit of a controversial figure on base notes because he's been around a very long time. And apparently he buys everything and has very little to say about anything he buys. This is not a call out. I'm not talking smack. I'm just being honest because it's what I see. But there's a base notes user named Hednick, Hednic. He's got a a hyena. He's got a hyena for a picture. He's been on that site for like 18, 19 years now. And no one really knows who he is, but apparently he's some kind of multi-mega billionaire that has like 6 houses all across the world. And he just has money coming out his ass. Every which direction he farts, he shits, money comes flying out. And that's fine. There are people like that in the world. He is not the only person like that in the world. There are plenty of those out there. And, well, again, he buys like everything. And he goes, this is good, this is bad, this is nice, I dislike this, smells good, smells bad, good choice, bad choice, this is my favorite, didn't care for it, that's it. His comments offer almost no value at all, other than the sheer volume of them, I guess, is good for the SEO of the website, I don't know. But every once in a while, you're able to squeeze more than 5 words out of them. You're able to get like an actual sentence, a fully written sentence with a period. And he'll say something. And it's like the most esoteric nugget of wisdom. And somebody was asking about vetiver. They were like, I enjoy Carven vetiver, but it's too expensive. I want a replacement fragrance. And then he just came out of nowhere and he said, if you want something that's close to Carven vetiver, then get Montale Aoud Ever. Buy this. And the first thought that goes in my head, oh, this is another one of these bullshit replies just to add another reply, right? Because he makes a lot of those. Like I said, I'm not calling the guy out. Everyone's entitled to do what they want. It's no big deal. You enjoy the internet however you see fit. As long as you're not trolling anybody, as long as you're not causing problems, causing any harm, I don't care. If you want to make 5 million replies of 2 words or less, that's your business. So that's why this is not a mean-spirited, not meant to be mean-spirited. This is just me calling it like I see it. But he said, get Aoud Ever. And I was like, huh. So I began to research this fragrance. And everywhere I went online, including Fragrantica, including Base Notes, including all other places, people said this smelled like Eau Sauvage. They said it smelled like Eau de Guerlain. They said it smelled like all these different woody fragrances. It smelled like Tom Ford Oud Wood, all these other disparate things, right? But I got curious. So I went ahead and I bought a bottle. And wouldn't you know it, this is a vetiver fragrance. I don't know how much like carbon vetiver it smells because I've never smelled carbon vetiver as of this video. Maybe afterwards I'll have smelled it. But as of this video right now, I haven't smelled carbon vetiver. But I shit you not. The freaking hyena, multi-billionaire with a dozen houses and 100,000 fragrances and money falling out of his ass, a man of few words, makes 2-word replies, none other than the legendary Headnick himself. He was right. Okay? The man of mystery himself was right. And this is called Oud vetiver. But you bet your candy ass this is not Oud vetiver. I mean, Oud ever. See, I fucked that up. You bet your candy ass that this is not Oud ever. This is vetiver. This is a vetiver fragrance. So, unless they're doing some kind of like Cockney slang of Oud ever rhyming vetiver, so Oud ever is vetiver, like dog and bone is telephone and Cockney, whatever. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. But again, the hyena was correct. And that is a surprise in half. It comes in a purple bottle. Purple bottle. Oud ever. Purple bottle. Big vetiver. You like Guerlain vetiver? You like Givenchy vetiver? You like Terre de Hermes Eau Intense vetiver? You like big vetiver fragrances? Get this purple bottle called Aoud ever. Big surprise. I love it. That's all the time I got. This has been the Unlist. Hope you enjoyed watching it. Hopefully something surprises you in a good way in the near future.